Hey guys, you're listening to the Today's Eden podcast, episode 46. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Happy Wednesday, you guys. We are officially 19 days out from Christmas. I hope I didn't just stress you out just then. But yes, 19 days out. And that is the reason why I'm having Valerie Friedlander on the podcast today. She's who you're going to hear from. And she's going to totally make you feel like she's inside your head. Like you're going to walk away thinking this was your self-coaching session. Like she is going to make you feel like you are sitting on the couch and she is like reading your mind. It's so good. So we are talking about handling relatives, because, you know, there's always that relative that tends to get under your skin over the holidays, and most likely they're staying at your house, right? And also how we can handle the overwhelm. So we are really going to get down to the subconscious reasons why we do the things that we do over the holidays, how we can be more conscious about the decisions and really get out of the holidays what we want this holiday season. Like at the end of it, you want to walk away from it feeling like, wow, that was a really good Christmas, or whatever you're celebrating it. You just want to feel like you had more fun than you did dread, and you don't walk away from it being like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that was over. That was awful. And so Valerie's going to get into that with us. I'm super excited to share this episode with you guys so that way you can handle the holidays better, so you can stress less, enjoy yourself, and, maybe get a little kiss under the mistletoe. Hey, Valerie, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today because we're going to talk a little bit about the holidays and the season that we're going to be in and all the craziness and chaos that means for us as moms. So I am super excited to have you on.
Yay, me too.
So before we get started, I wanted to ask you to kind of introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do and what life kind of looks like for you right now.
Okay. Well, I'm Valerie Friedlander. I am a mom of two little boys, a 6.5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I've been married for 13 years.
Really?
And yeah.
I didn't really.
I was like, wait, is that right? Yeah. Yeah. We were kind of young. Well, and that actually ties into a little bit of some of the things, but I'll get to that in a second. So yeah, I live in Chicago. We've only been here for about 3 years, so I'm still kind of adjusting to this wonderful city, but I love it. Not the winters so much right now, but otherwise, it's fabulous, especially the summertime. I am the founder of The Unlimited Mom. I am a certified professional coach and core energy master practitioner. Those are my certifications in life coaching. And from that journey of getting certified as a life coach, which I had originally entered to work in corporate, it changed my life so much. And I realized that it was exactly what I'd been looking for when I became a mom, and drug my husband to therapy and went to therapy and all of the things that I was like, what is wrong with me? I was supposed to be awesome at this.
Yeah.
And I'm not loving my life like I thought I would. And I realized in my training that this was the thing, because I got to managing life better with a lot of therapy and support. But I was still feeling really stuck. And that changed when I started going through my training. So basically, my story in short is that I put my life together in the way I thought you were supposed to. That creates that happy, fulfilling life, right? That went to college, met my husband, got married, got kind of developed a lucrative career in corporate, and we bought a house in the suburbs, and then we had like everything but the picket fence, basically, on like in all perspective, like outside looking in kind of thing.
Right.
And he was pretty happy. His job was a little crazy because he worked in theater and was away a lot, and so then of course add having children and working full time, not 100% loving it. But, it was working pretty well, and I made money, and then with kids, and everything that I was tolerating in my life kind of exploded in my face. It was like, when you're doing a puzzle and you've got that last puzzle piece and you're like, okay, it's not perfect, but I'll be able to, it'll all come together once I put this piece in.
Right.
And I put the piece in, i.e. having a kid, and it was like all the other pieces kind of popped out of place. And I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what happened? And I felt like I was failing at everything, like literally everything. Started looking at what do I want to do with my life? Because I knew that was the core piece that I was willing to change. I was like, I'm not getting rid of my husband. I'm not getting rid of my kid. Like,
yeah.
I like my house. So the career thing is where I just kind of automatically fell into it. And that brought me to coaching, which opened up a whole new level of being that I had never even thought was possible that I could enter into. So
yeah, I can't even imagine you as like corporate now. Well, I mean, I guess because, I didn't know you before then. And so, yeah, that is awesome that you kind of found your, the right thing, and that you didn't. I think we're so fearful of like stepping out of those, like, we went to college and, you followed the steps. And so then like to go outside of the boundaries is so hard for us because we spent all this time investing in, education or career, that it's like, if I stop that, then all of that behind me was like for nothing. It kind of feels like. And so, it's so hard.
That is the big fear. And that was actually why I didn't go and get a master's, and I didn't fully pursue acting, which was something else that I was interested in. Or like, I didn't fully play out in anything. Like, my career was an accident. I mean, not in terms of like, I worked hard for it, but it was, I fell into it. I did well, and I moved up, and it wasn't intentional. And because everything that I might have pursued intentionally was putting myself too much out there, and that fear of spending spending the time and the money on something that might not be what I wanted, might not be the right thing.
Yeah.
It always stopped me, which is actually why I went for a life coaching certification instead of a master's in HR. But the cool thing is that it was exactly where I needed to be right then. And it also helped me realize that even stepping into the entrepreneurial world after doing 10 plus years of corporate, that all of that experience and all of the resources and the tools, it wasn't a waste of time. It all builds. It's a life journey. It's not like there's a particular destination, and if, you might miss it, if you shoot in the wrong direction, you might miss it. It's not even possible. It's really, how are you playing in now? And I didn't have that before. So
yeah,
it really was I'm exactly where I meant to be right now.
And that's so awesome. Like, I love how things just like work out like that sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I've read a lot of your like testimonials from your website and stuff, and I think it is really awesome that, you really are able to help moms. And like I said, we're going into this season of craziness and holidays, and that means like lots and lots of stuff on ourselves that, and that includes taking the responsibility for things that we're not even good at doing or want to do or need to do. So like, let's talk a little bit about that and like why we do that, how we can not do that, how we survive the seasons,
Yeah, absolutely. And well, that's a big one for most moms in particular, of taking things on and all the shoulds.
Yeah.
My mom used to say, stop shooting all over yourself, and it's, so really what I found is that it comes down to identifying what are the shoulds and what are the want tos, like what's really important. Because a lot of times one of my highest values, and I know this is true for a lot of moms, most moms, is family. Mm-hmm. And that tends to take over everything. So when we're honoring a value, we feel good.
Yeah.
And when we're ignoring it or even threatening one, we feel bad. So that when you have a high value around family, and it's both a conscious one, well, one that we do feel good honoring, but also a fear-based one of like, what will happen if I don't?
Yeah.
that it becomes really easy to kind of get caught up in that and only that and forget all of the other things. You're more than just a mom. You're a whole human being. So you have other values than just family. And when you're not honoring those, that's when we get depleted. That's when we get exhausted. If we're doing things that aren't honoring values of ours, that's another place where we get depleted. So one of the exercises I often give clients is to list out like the top 5 things that you're doing, the actions, activities that you have going on, and your top 5 values, and see how they match up. And any place where they're not matching up, maybe it's just a different way of thinking about it. Maybe it's like, going to, one of the big ones is like going to work. I'm threatening my value of family because I should be home with my kids, kind of thing, one of those. But even if it's just thinking, I'm actually taking care of my family in multiple ways. I'm taking care of my family by making money to feed them and house them and clothe them and all of those things. And I'm also taking care of myself because I have a value of personal achievement and I want to nurture my own growth and development. And by doing that, I am better able to support my children. So sometimes it's just a reframing. And sometimes it's an actual like, no, I'm not getting anything out of this. This is really not meant for me. So I'm a big fan when it comes to the holidays of knowing what's really important to you. And for the things that you feel like you still need to get done, but are not things that you really care, like they're not really fueling you, is to delegate. Have somebody else do it. And that can be tricky because sometimes it's hard to let go of the way you want it done.
Yep.
Like I want it done this way, and I know that my husband won't do it that way. He's going to do it his way. And I don't want him to do it his way. I want him to do it my way. So I'm going to dictate to him the way he's supposed to do it. And I'm going to get mad at him when he doesn't do it that way. That doesn't usually help very much. So it's being able to recognize the things you're willing to let go of and let somebody else do it their way. If I ask my kids to set the table, is it going to look all nice and perfect? No, but I'm honoring my value of nurturing my children and helping them take responsibility. Another value, I'm teaching them and I'm taking care of myself by not trying to do all the things. So it really is taking a look at what's most important and what are you willing to let go of and what are you willing to delegate.
That's really good. Yeah. And you made a good point though. Like, I think the biggest struggle for us is just getting over the control issue, like trying to hold on to all the things. And I think that part of it, to be honest, is like to be at the end of it, like, look at what I was able to do. Look at look at how everything,
That's another value, sense of accomplishment.
So what do you do if those are like butting heads? What do you do if like you're striving for this sense of accomplishment, but yet like trying to cook all the food and have everybody over at your house and do all the cleaning and like, but yet you're probably working a full-time job. Like, how do you kind of balance the two of taking on too much, but yet you want that sense of accomplishment?
Yeah. So it really, one of the big things is just identifying what that actually means to you. So often we kind of go into this autopilot where we're just like, do the next thing, like very much of a survival mode. We've got our blinders on. We're like, okay, I've got to do this and this and this and this. And looking at the big, like all of the things gets overwhelming. And when you're overwhelmed, you are in survival mode. So you're only going to see what's right in front of you and you're going to see the problems. So you're going to be constantly trying to fix the problems when you can just take a step back, take a deep breath, take a step back, give yourself just a few minutes, like 15 minutes, maybe half an hour to really sit and look at what does this mean to you? Like, what does this season mean to you? What is important to you about it? And the people that you're with, like, I mean, because that's another big one is like, oftentimes we deal with family that maybe we don't necessarily like get along with or stress us out in some ways. And they all have expectations too. I like to think of expectations as premeditated resentments. So if I'm holding on to expectations, then I'm, like to be mindful that that may mean I am disappointed. But to know that that's true for other people. It's not necessarily about me. It's about them.
Yeah.
They have their own stuff going on. So that's a big one, like don't take it personally. It's not about you. And we can dig into that in a minute. But as far as taking a look at like all of the things, just give yourself a moment to really consider, again, what values are there, but like, what does it look like if you were to stop and like at the end, if you were to be through the holidays and you were to be able to go, wow, that was amazing. Like, or I totally rocked that. What would you have done? What does that mean? A lot of times we have a goal and we think that that's going to make us happy. That goal is, when I achieve this, then I will feel like this. So if I achieve the perfect Thanksgiving dinner, then I will feel satisfied. I will feel accomplished. I will feel joyful. Well, the thing is, like we just said, it's a journey. It's not a destination. That feeling is the actual goal. It's not having the perfect Thanksgiving feast. It's feeling joyful. So if you don't feel joyful in the process of creating the Thanksgiving feast, you probably aren't going to feel joyful at the end. Yeah. So what would it take? What would help you feel more joyful in the process?
Yeah.
So you take that step back and you really consider what do I want out of this? Then you can start bringing that into your now because you're doing it more consciously. And that's the biggest thing. Sometimes it's hard to get really conscious about your own stuff. Like, we can't see our own forehead. Yeah. Like you need a mirror for that, which is why I do what I do.
Right.
But with something like this, with the holidays, really just taking a few minutes to get clear on what's important can make all the difference in terms of creating that.
I think that's really awesome that you brought that up, like looking towards like, what is your end goal? What do you want? Like when you sit back at the end of like all of, the end of Christmas or whatever, and what do you want to feel at the end of that? Or, and I think that so much of when we get done with the holidays, it's like, we missed it. Like happened so fast, or it was so crazy to where we're either like so glad it's over because we were so stressed out. We went to like a bajillion places and we did a bajillion things that we didn't get to enjoy, like the actual experience of the holiday or with the family or whatever it was. And so I think that that's really like genius that you said, like thinking about the perfect, like, oh, if it was just perfect, that would make me feel this way. But like, when you think about it, it's like, no, that's really not what you're looking for. And so I guess that would be like reverse engineering your, like what you want for the holidays, basically. And I think that's genius. Like, I don't know why, like it seems so simple to me. And I'm like, why don't we naturally think that way?
Because we're not trained to think that way. Most of our society functions in survival mode.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's the way corporate America is. That's the way most of our society functions. So of course we're not trained to do that. We're trained to function in survival mode.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it really has to do with your perspective. Everything has to do with your perspective. This is kind of the core of what I work in, is the way you view the world, the filters that you look through are based in everything in your life up until now. So how broad of a picture you're seeing, or how, like I only see so much, then it impacts how you engage with the world. So if you feel like, if you're perceiving that somebody's being defensive, or attacking you, you're going to get defensive. Right. And then that's going to kind of exacerbate a argument or the sense that of tension or conflict. If you see somebody as having a bad day and gosh, like you're really upset. I can see that you're really upset, and don't take it personally and don't see it as like they're attacking you.
Mm-hmm.
They're having some stuff going on. Then you can be compassionate and you don't enter an argument. So, that's just a small example. We do it on a variety of levels, but the more survival mode we're in, the more we only see something as this is what it is. We kind of label it, we judge it. This is what it is, what I say it is. And if I label it as having more power than me, then I am at the effect of it and I don't have options.
Yeah.
Versus if I see something as an opportunity, then I have more options on the table and it's full of possibility. It's hard to shift that on our own sometimes, especially if we're really, really into like, I've got to get this done. If I don't do this, the world will fall apart. Rarely is that true, but it feels real,
Yeah.
So I mean, I always say, like, however you're feeling makes total sense based on the way you're thinking about what's going on and about yourself. It's understandable. And there are plenty of people out there that are feeling the exact same way. So never beat yourself up over your feelings.
Yeah.
But know that they are yours. So you have power over them. You're in charge.
Speaking of like relatives, and like you said, we have expectations.
This segues very nicely. Yeah.
We have expectations for, other people. And you said it, like they have it for us too, but we don't think about that. So how can we walk into into situations where we know we're going to have to deal with relatives that we don't like or that we don't want to deal with, or we feel like, being with them is going to bring on, these XYZ negative feelings. So how do we like prepare ourselves for these situations? How can we make the best of them? What can we do?
Okay. So there are a couple things that can be very helpful with that. When you know that you're going into a situation with someone who pushes your buttons, who really gets under your skin, have a support system. Maybe it, and have some options, some ways of getting out. Because when we feel like we don't have any options, that's when we really kind of shut down. So if you recognize that this is their stuff. If somebody pushes a button of yours, it's your button. It's not them. So like, you can't push a button I don't have.
Right.
I can't push a button you don't have. So if somebody gets reactive based on something that I said, that's their stuff. That's not my stuff.
Yeah.
So being able to take responsibility and forgive and let go of other people. So just like, okay, I see you got something going on. I'm going to forgive you, bless and release. And then I'm going to go take care of me.
Yeah.
So having certain outs that so like, okay, I know that this person's going to get to me. When I notice I'm starting to get a little that feeling, the feeling, that you start to just irritated, stressed out, whatever. I'm going to go walk the dog, or I'm going to have a little inspirational, quote or two or a little reading or something that I can take into the bathroom and go have a little time to myself in the bathroom, or I'm going to have an errand that I need to run and have the support system. So if your spouse is somebody that you can rely on, I'm going to say have a signal or something I'm going to, and share that, let your spouse know that they can do the same thing if you need to have an out. Or even schedule it. Maybe it's not a spontaneous thing. So in certain instances when okay, I'm gonna need to take a break. So I'm gonna plan a time with my girlfriend. We're gonna take an hour coffee and just schedule it in. Just plan for it. Let everybody know ahead of time. Hey, I've got this. I'm gonna have to leave for a little bit, just so you all know. If they get upset about it, that's their stuff. Make sure you're taking care of you, because otherwise you know how it goes if you don't do that. So not do that, right?
Totally. Yeah. I feel like that's a really good idea. The spontaneous thing, I mean, that could work, but I feel like just going ahead and just saying I'm just going to go ahead and schedule a time where on this day that I know that they're going to be here, I'm going to go do this. Those are really good ideas. Yeah, we just need to survive. Better than survive.
Better than survive. Well, so when you plan something, when you look and do that ahead, like what would the ideal Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holiday you're celebrating look like? What would the experience be like? Then you can start thinking more creatively about finding solutions instead of staring at all the little problems, finding solutions to the things that pop up. So again, a solution to I want to have the home cooked dinner could be a potluck. Like these are the things that are most important to me to do because I get the most pride in doing them. I feel really good when I cook that turkey, like whatever, or my mashed potatoes are the bomb. I have to do, that's my husband. He's like, I do the mashed potatoes. Great, you've got the mashed potatoes. If you love a people and being around a lot of people, having it be a community activity. Hey, we're not just going to get together and have Thanksgiving. We're all going to cook it together. My sister used to come over and we'd make a big thing over cooking. Of course, my sister-in-law always managed to set off the fire alarms. Traumatized my children. But see, like what's important to you about the experience of the holidays and what will help you be more present in them. And sometimes that means taking that little break for yourself to recharge if you are more introverted, knowing that you need a little bit of you time away. Or if you know that this person tends to trigger you, having something to turn to help kind of deactivate. Maybe it's like, I got to walk the dog and you make a phone call to a girlfriend. Yeah. Or bathroom inspiration or whatever, like something small that doesn't have to be like a big thing, but that will help you untrigger yourself.
That sounds like an amazing idea. I think that you said it's their stuff, not yours. And so that's what I've been trying to do the past couple of years is just going into it like, this is not, because of me, this is not what I am doing. And like, just not putting any expectations on the day, not thinking about like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so awful. Like it's going to be, because when I notice that when I go into it already assuming that it's going to be awful, that I'm going to hate it, that it's, like, then it's worse than it is. Like it's so much worse.
You set yourself up to be successful in hating it.
That is so true. Yeah. So I was curious, what are like the number one things that moms come to you needing help with?
Well, a lot of times it is that mindset piece, but it may not be the catalyst for what they come to me around. Clarity is a big one. Feeling stuck, just this general sense of like, I know I want to do something, but I'm not doing it and I can't figure out why. Yeah. So that's a big piece of it. And we end up going a variety of places because that's the thing, like you said, it's often a mindset piece. It's because your mindset affects everything, your perspective, the way you're viewing the world, the lenses you're looking through. You can't compartmentalize things. It affects everything. Yeah. So I tend to work with a lot of mom entrepreneurs, and it usually has to do with that balance between family and business and also actions that like, I know I could be successful, but for some reason I keep stopping. So that's the thing that we tend to dig into is either I'm more stressed out than I want to be. I stepped into this because I wanted more freedom in my life. And now I'm feeling like I wanted more time with my family and that's not happening. And I feel like I'm not actually achieving what I wanted to achieve. And so knowing, and this is the thing, a lot of when people work with me, it's usually because they know that they have a personal part of it. They're not looking at the outside going, it's this, it's that, it's this other thing. Maybe there's some of that, but they know that they could do something different. They just don't know how. And that's what we dig into because I help people find their how. So you're the expert of your life. Yeah. You know you better than anybody else. So I'm not going to come in and tell you this is the way you do it. Exercises, things like that to discover what works for you. And then also just helping hold up that mirror. Because again, you can't see your own forehead. So I always say like my own best thinking got me here. Yeah. I need somebody to help me think deeper than where I was going. And even just ask the question that like, what would it look like if you were successful? Like, how would you feel differently? What would you do differently? So asking those questions to help you go deeper, that that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I think motherhood is a hard, and I was talking about this with my husband, and I was like, motherhood is just a hard place to navigate when you go from, it's like a whole shift in your identity. And a lot of times between just woman and then woman and mom, we get kind of lost between that transition from one to the other. And then we don't know what we're doing. Like, and we have a hard time of feeling guilty if we leave one and, do less of the other, or, and so it's just really hard for us to sort that out in our heads.
Yeah. Well, who am I and what do I do? Like it's really, the more who you're being in the world is aligned with who you are, and what you do is aligned with that, and how you do it, the more successful, more in the flow, the more joyful you are. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times who we're being in the world isn't actually matching very well with who we are. And it's not that you're doing it wrong. Like, it's part of the journey of self-discovery, self-awareness. Who you are is constant evolution. Mm-hmm. If it's not working for you, if you're feeling stuck and dissatisfied and not experiencing life the way you want to, that's when it's totally okay to ask for help. Like, that's one of the biggest gifts that my parents ever gave me was actually modeling asking for help when things weren't going well, because they definitely had a lot of stuff going on when I was a kid, and I picked up a lot of patterns from them that they wished that that I hadn't. Mm-hmm. It's been part of my journey of self-discovery, and part of the reason why I'm able to be of service the way that I am is because it's a process. It's a growing, and I have a background, and it's been really reassuring for me as a parent, actually, to see that everything that I have gone through, and all of the good and the bad, as it were, that I picked up from my parents, has been integral in my life and what I'm here to do and how I'm here to serve in the world. And so I kind of tap into that when I'm feeling stressed out and thinking I'm not doing a good enough job, that little inner critic that goes off of like, I'm not doing a good job, my kids are going to be all screwed up. And I just know that even if it's not what I would want it to be, one, I can't control what they pick up. I can only lead in the best way that I know how. Mm-hmm. And continue to try and improve. But I also can't control what they remember. I can't control the way they think about situations. And I have to trust that what they get from me is exactly what they need to grow into and evolve as the person that they're here to be. Mm-hmm. So what my part is to do my best and know that I'm perfectly where I need to be right now, and where do I want to keep going.
Yeah. Ah, preach. I'm like, that is so liberating for moms to think of it in that way. Like, as you're saying that, I'm like, that takes so much off of yourself. Like, we are responsible, and we do definitely have a huge part in the way that our kids turn out, but just the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves to, raise perfect adults is just, but mm-hmm. with that, like you said, that's exactly it. Like, there's a lot of it that we can't control, and like taking that weight off of our shoulders is like huge. So
totally. We're not meant to be that external idea of perfect. We're not human.
So I want to go back to at the very beginning. We talked about your you guys got married young. So mm-hmm. I want to know your story. How did that? Because you're like, there is a story.
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, I mean So
you're like, where do I even go with this? I don't
even know where to go with that. Well, so we met in college. We had actually interacted. We both did theater in college, and so we had interacted a bit in some productions. But we were both in, those early dysfunctional college relationships that I think everybody has to go through. Maybe not everybody. I don't like to make generalizations or assumptions, but I certainly had to go through mine. Like I said, I grew up with some patterns of interaction and ways of being in the world that weren't exactly the healthiest. And I recreated some of them in my life. And so I didn't really notice the guy that was going to be my husband at the time when we initially interacted. It was just somebody on the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was later after I went through a lot of stuff, and basically that one relationship was eye-opening in that a lot of the patterns, and I was in a space of, so I've got stuff going on. Like I've got things that I haven't worked on, but you have this hole that you're digging for yourself, and dealing with my hole really, it'd be so much. Let me just help you with yours. So I jumped in and started helping this guy dig, and became pretty miserable, trying to prove myself that I was the best person, and I understand you better than anybody else can understand you, and he had that whole like, nobody understands me. So there was a lot of like, I think people like energy attracts like energy, or at least complementary energy. So the way I was experiencing life, I mean, we really were a great pair. And then after that relationship ended in many painful ways, which I will not go into, I had a roommate, and I started doing the same things with her in terms of, you've got a hole, I want to fix you. Let me fix you. And she's like, I don't want you to fix me. Like, get away from me. And I'm like, no, please let me fix you, because that's how I feel okay. And that was pressure on her. And it was also judgmental, because I saw her as needing to be fixed. And, as much as that seems like it's helpful, if people haven't asked for something, I learned this lesson really hard I always ask, how do you want me to support you? If somebody's coming to me and asking me for stuff, how do you want me to show up for you? Because I don't want to assume that somebody wants me to do something. Maybe they don't see themselves as needing to be fixed. Maybe they just needed to vent. We hear this all the time in relationships with spouses and stuff. Like, you talk to your spouse about something and they're like, oh, well, do this. And you're like, no, I just needed a vent. Why are you trying to fix me? Well, we do that too. When we see people as broken and see people as needing help, I always wait. If somebody comes to me and I think, okay, well, what is it that you are looking for? How can I be of best service to you? Before just assuming that they want me to do something. But seeing that the pattern again, that whole fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's me. I'm creating this. And seeing that, I got really depressed for a while, because I didn't know what to do about it. And I had a friend, luckily, someone I just had one of those late night conversations with in college, come over and was like, hey. And for me, it was, she invited me to come to an Al-Anon meeting. And if you aren't familiar with Al-Anon, it's for families and friends of alcoholics. And I have that in my family. And and also the person that I was dating, there's definitely some addictive behaviors there. So it's like, well, it can't get much worse than this. So sure.
Yeah.
And that was of great support for me, that, and then therapy. And I finally realized, I had this aha moment. I was listening to, it was about a year later, and I was listening to Amy Mann's album. It's the Magnolia soundtrack.
Okay.
And I love it. And it's very, I just resonated with it right then. There's a lot of victim mentality in there, a lot of like, was it, now that I've met you, would you object to never seeing each other again? And like, oh, for the sake of momentum, I've allowed my fears to get larger than life. And just like that momentum of things. So I was really resonating, and I was listening to it, and it suddenly hit me. I'm like, I don't want to resonate with this anymore. I don't want this way of being in the world. I want something different than this. I want to have agency in my life. I want to be in charge of my life. And shortly thereafter, I reconnected with my husband, Keith. I was in a class and he was working in the theater building where I was taking the class, and he invited me to go to a movie. And it kind of just went from there. But for the first time with him, with any relationship, I chose consciously. He invited me up to after like we went off for a walk, and he invited me up to his place, and I went, I know what happens when you go up to somebody's place. I know how this is going to go. Do I know how I want to handle it? No, I don't know how I want to handle it. So I'm going to take a rain check until I do know how I want to handle it. I'm not going to put myself in the position until I've gotten clear that I would want, because I had a lot of times where I just kind of went with it because I didn't want to say no and I didn't know what I wanted, and I went into overwhelm and I shut down and I wasn't present, and I didn't want to do that anymore because I decided I was going to be in charge of my life. So obviously, I decided that I was going to go up there later on, and and from there, I just made a point of choosing, being at choice, and that's made all the difference, and it's kind of progressed from there. That I wouldn't say that was the turning point. That was the big aha in my life. I've had lots of pretty awesome ahas since then, but that was probably the biggest.
Yeah, and I think you're so right that in general, a lot of the choices that we make them, like you said, you didn't know what you wanted to do with that, so you were like, no, I'm gonna wait. And like I think that we do that to ourselves a lot of times, where we just jump into things, and then like you feel like awful about it, whether it's like a decision you made about something or whatever, because you just went too fast. Like you just jumped to dive right in before you even like thought about yourself.
Yeah. It's the reactive. It's living reactively instead of consciously.
Yeah. So there's a thing for it.
There's a thing for it. Yeah, I've learned so many more tools around that since that time. I got to a more functional place through a lot of the other things that I had done, but to really be able to be proactive and make conscious, not just conscious, but loving choices. My mom used to ask me, and this is one of the things there are those things where like your mom or parent would say stuff and you're just like, oh my God, that's the most annoying thing you could possibly say to me. And she would ask me, what's most loving for Valerie? And I was like, all right, one, I don't know the answer to that. And I don't even know how to ask myself that question. So why would you ask me that? That is like the worst thing you could possibly say to me, which, has since become one of the best things she's ever said to me.
You're sitting in your car, you're listening to this podcast right now, or you're watching our video, and somebody's saying like, I don't even know how to ask myself that. Or how does somebody watching, listening, ask themselves, how do they need to be loved? How do they or to love themselves? How do they kind of start that process?
So I think it's very individual. But what I would say for that is really asking, what would it feel like if I felt loved? What would it feel like, and we think of love as a feeling, but how would my life be different if I felt this way? What would I do differently if I knew? And that's the thing. So often we think we have to know. We have to know the answer. And usually that's because we're thinking in terms of right and wrong. Like there's a right answer, there's a wrong answer. Anytime we're thinking in right, wrong, good, bad, our options are limited. It's either or. So when you can step back and just get curious, it could look like anything. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad way to do this. There's just a choice.
Yeah.
And then you find out more information, because ultimately feelings are information about you. They're not information about what's going on around you. They're information about you. and the way you're experiencing your life. So when you think about what do I want to feel like? What would I do if I felt that way? You start kind of getting into a more expansive thought process. You start tapping into a broader, more open space where you have more options.
And less logical too, because I feel like when it's right, wrong, good, bad, then it's like we try to make it realistic, what we think is realistic, or like logical, when what we need might not be either of those things.
And it's usually outside. It's usually outside of ourselves. It's not inside, because inside is where you know. Your knowing is deep inside of you. And so it's not this, somebody else said or outside. Maybe there are certain learning pieces of like, and this is something that comes up with a lot of the people that I work with, of like, and I've done it too, of like, when I became an entrepreneur, I'm like, I don't want to screw this up. Like I need this to be successful. Somebody tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
And I started doing somebody else's doings. And this happens with motherhood too. Somebody tell me how to do it. So much of life isn't one way or another way. There's no like magic bullet or right way to do it that suddenly everything falls into place. It's a journey.
Yeah.
That we grow and we learn from.
Yeah.
And so our inner knowing, when we can really listen to ourselves, and that can be very hard. I mean, like I said, I didn't know how to do that. It takes practice. So you're gonna make choices that you're gonna go, that didn't go the way I would have liked it to. And it's easy to beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up. Get curious about it.
Yeah.
Ask, okay, so what didn't work about that? It's the same as people do with a business when they're not in that stuck space of like looking at analytics of like, okay, so what worked, what didn't? What strategy will I try next time? It's life is a giant experiment.
And in business, we're so much easier with, like you said, like that's the norm for us to like do something and then look at it and be like, oh, like you not get too like wrapped up in the failure part, but just looking at, okay, so what should I do next time? But then when it comes to our personal lives, we're like, that's not even an option in our mind of, yeah.
Because it's so personal.
That makes sense.
Because it's so personal, which I mean, that's one of the reasons why like mom entrepreneurs, we struggle a lot around that, is because it is so personal. Most of us decide to go into business because we are really passionate about something. We really care about something. We want to make a difference. And so when it's really personal, then the emotions come up more and we feel a deep sense of connectedness to it. Yeah. That's another reason why I'm a huge advocate of having support. Of having a team of support, and some people you might pay for, and some people there might be friends or maybe family, whether it's biological or chosen family, whatever that looks like. But having people that you can turn to cheer you on, to lift you up, to be there for you, to challenge you, to help you stay accountable to what you say you want when you want to go back into the patterns that you're familiar with and comfortable with, because even though you don't actually feel happy, they feel safe.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Yeah. I'm just thinking back at this all the topics that we've covered. I'm like, we've gone from so many really good and deep things. For those who are really resonating with what you're saying and want to check out your work and stuff, where can they follow you? Where can they find you? Where can they do all those things?
So I'm on social media as the Unlimited Mom on all the social media places that I exist on. So I don't exist on all of them, but I'm on several of them. So if you search the Unlimited Mom, and I do like to say this is more of a movement. It's not that I'm unlimited. I definitely am still on my own journey of self-discovery. I have a lot more tools, but I also have my own life coach. So,
I think that's awesome for you to say.
Throw that out
yeah,
there.
no, I think that's awesome that you say that, because a lot of the times, we look at life coaches and we're like, they have it all together. They, like they know everything. They just, but to like sit there and say like, no, like I'm on my own journey just like you. We all need support. We all need people. Yeah. Oh, so awesome.
And that's a big one, of someone to really hear you without getting personally involved. An objective person to hear you, to reflect to you, and to hold space for you, to see your best self when you're not seeing it, and help you reconnect to that. And that's, I think, one of the most powerful things of the work that I do.
Yeah.
So as far as finding me, social media, The Unlimited Mom, theunlimitedmom.com is my website. And I also have, speaking of the holidays and speaking of pushing buttons and things like that, I have a little quiz that helps you tap into your calm personality. So like basically what your key to calm is based on your personality. So it's a really short little questionnaire, and you get your answers without putting in your email address. Yeah. You can actually get those. If you want to go further and you want the 5-step strategy that I have to deactivating a button, then you can opt in and give me your email. And I promise I don't like do a ton of emails. But if you just want like what's a great strategy for you personally, if you're getting triggered, it's a handy little quiz to help you find some of those things, so that when you're in the moment with the people in the holidays, you can deactivate that button.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I will have to post that in the show notes with this episode so everybody can go and check that out, because that will definitely be helpful for a lot of us.
Oh, I use it too.
Okay. So I have 3 last questions for you. The first being, if you could choose one of the most influential books that you've read, what would it be?
Okay, so I would say, and there have been so many, but I would go with The 4 Agreements.
Okay.
By Don Miguel Ruiz. That it's my mom gave it to me, and I tried to read it, and it was a little overwhelming. I finally came to actually being able to sit with it and read it more recently, and it was super powerful. I think one of the stepping stones to that was my training and working with my own coach. And so if I can add another one, and now I'm going to forget the name of it, which is really sad. Energy Leadership. How did I forget that? Energy Leadership. It's focused on more of a corporate space, but it talks about the ways we show up. And it was one of the required reading for my training program. And it was, especially while I was in corporate, it was hugely helpful for me to see ways to shift how I was experiencing the situations I was in and look at things a little bit differently. So I found that to be helpful, but definitely if I were to say one, it would be The 4 Agreements.
Okay. I'll have to post those. And then if you could empower women in one way, what would it be?
To help them see their unlimited potential, that they really can do anything, that they're amazing. Yeah.
I totally believe it too. For everybody watching, like this, like we sat at a table together and like just seeing your heart, like your heart is fully in, like encouraging other women. So yeah.
And we set that foundation for our kids. And that really and that's the reason I wanted to work with moms, partly for myself because I am a mom, but also because I think the way we lead our lives and the potential that us stepping into and fully playing in our journey shows our kids what's possible for them. Whatever they choose to do with it is up to them. But that example is powerful. And I think it will make a difference in the world, that the more self-connected we are, the more we can connect with other people and the less conflict we have. And I think we need that right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we could probably have a whole nother episode about how important it is to, like, in a social media technology, world, be more connected with ourselves. That could
Yes.
be totally.
We could go all like,
Yeah. If you could tell your younger self one thing, assuming that she would listen, what would it be?
I would say that you're good enough and that life can be better than this. Don't settle. Or you don't have to settle. I wouldn't say don't settle. I would say you don't have to settle if you don't want to. So I don't have a judgment around that. If somebody wants to settle, that's okay. If I decided. So it's like, you don't have to, though. You can have more.
I think that's like advice that we need to tell ourselves today.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for being on. I'm super happy to get to talk to you. And yeah, you shared like so many good things. So I think we're going to survive. We're going to survive the holidays or better.
And you might even enjoy them. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure reconnecting with you.
Holy cow. I feel like that was so good. And I hope that it helps you to navigate the holidays better, to deal with those relationships, that are a little tricky, and also be just super mindful of what you're getting into before you say yes to all the things this holiday season. So I do have an update. Today's Eden podcast is getting a new name, and it's going to be It Takes a Village podcast. And I really, really want you guys to help me out with deciding on the podcast cover art. So when you look in iTunes and you look for this podcast, that little picture that shows you what Today's Eden podcast is. I would really love for you guys to hop on over to the Today's Eden tribe, which we'll also have to change the name of. But head on over there, and I would love for you guys to help me decide this, because this podcast isn't just mine. I feel like this is all of ours. It's a place where we all come for community, to gather, to get empowered by each other. And so I would really love for you guys to be a part of making the decision to pick the cover art. And as always, if you're feeling a little giving today, head on over to iTunes and drop me a rating and review. I would really, really appreciate it. And the quote I want to leave with you today is, when I say time to go, what they hear is time to cram a bunch of books and stuffed animals into a backpack, put on 8 necklaces and a superhero cape, and take a 10-minute long poop. Mom life. See you guys next Wednesday.